And so we're covering the master class book by Mochi and Mark Olson. And so we're going to take a little bit of a detour off the book and cover some things that are sort of related to topics in the book, but not quite covered. This is because these are all important and interesting topics. And also I haven't really seen them covered anywhere in any book. So, and so what these are going to cover. So today we're going to cover some things like when do you break an anchor? So if you're playing the holding game, which is one of the game plans, the game plan dynamics covered by Mark Olson. He talks about it, but he never shows you anything about how to play the checkers and that sort of thing, or cubes or things like that. So, and that's because it's a different topic. But I thought it's an important topic to do, and it is sort of related to this book. And it's useful if you haven't looked at some of these things. It's very useful to know. Actually, in preparing these, I was thinking maybe do one or two sessions on each of the game plans, prime versus prime, the holding games, and that sort of thing. And there's actually a whole lot more I could do. So I'll try to figure out what the best is to get the most kind of whet your appetite on these things. And it turns out things like when you break the anchor, I can do 5 or 6 sessions on that and not cover everything and probably bore half of you to death. But it turns out to be much more complicated subject with a lot of nuances that you start looking at them, you can dive into and spend quite a lot of time on. So, but instead, I think I want to introduce the highlights and a couple of situations that are fairly common and useful to know, and hopefully give you an idea of how to approach it. And then, of course, what happens is that the devil is in the details often, and a lot of these can be quite challenging. So let's get started. So the topic for today is when do you break an anchor? And generally, I'm going to be looking at more advanced anchors now. Although actually, the first example is the 3-point anchor. And we did cover the 3-point anchor, or the butterfly anchor, in Michi's book, and Michi came up with it to determine the butterfly anchor. But and generally, the framework we're going to look at is, or here are the considerations. And this will be in the along with some of the this is the game plan or the strategic or I'm sorry, masterclass book accompanying spreadsheet, I guess, which is available to anyone who wants it. But and I'll be happy to send it to you. But so when we're looking at breaking an anchor, generally the primary thing is, are we ahead in the race? And for the most part, if we're not ahead in the race, we're probably not going to break the anchor. There are exceptions, and it's important to know what those are. But generally, if you're not ahead in the race, you're not going to break the anchor. You're going to want to stay back, and you're depending how far you are behind the race, you're going to want to stay back and hit your opponent to make up that to make up for the race. To get into a little more details, what is being ahead? Because you have a roll to make. Maybe you have a big roll, and if you're ahead in the race after after the roll, that's probably good enough. Roughly 4 pips up and ahead of roll is kind of, after you roll, is kind of like an even race, and so you probably want to do at least that. Not always the case, but it's a good rule of thumb. Secondary considerations are, how are your opponent's ability to attack? So you may be up in the race, but if your opponent has 4 builders bearing down on you to, point on you, maybe you should keep that anchor to avoid getting closed out. We'll look at some examples of that. What kind of alternative plays do you have? You may have a good running play, but you could also point on your opponent or make a good point inside your board, and that would maybe be better. relative board strength is always important. You know, if you're breaking your anchor, you're leaving a block probably, or at least maybe 2 blocks. And if your opponent has a really strong board, that's may not be the best idea. On the other hand, that may be the only thing you can do. So, you know, timing. I've seen a lot of holding games, midpoint holding games, or bar point holding games where we're just going to wait and hopefully let your opponent break first and then hit him. And so that's the considerations. And then if you're going to break the anchor, do you run it to safety or not? If you don't run it to safety, certainly a strike against running. So let's start looking at some examples of this type of thing. So the one that I have up now, what do we see here?
We're ahead in the race. We can run to safety, so those are arguments in favour. To me, the only other play is bringing 2 down from the midpoint. That looks really stiff, and but against that, Black's got a stronger board. I think I'd run because I just think it's going to get worse otherwise. Anyway, that's my thought.
Yeah. So that's a good analysis that we're up in the race. So that's step one. So now that means that we can run. It doesn't necessarily mean that we should run, but we can. And then we're kind of looking at, well, what's the alternative here? And there isn't really much of an alternative. We don't want to. At the midpoint, breaking the midpoint is probably the only alternative. We can't break this point because we can't. We certainly don't want to leave a shot. Certainly don't want to leave a shot that's not going to get us anywhere. If we break the anchor, we're going to leave a shot, but then we only have one more checker to clear. So in this case, the answer is it's time to run. And again, we're ahead in the race. We don't really have a good alternative. If we try to, another thing is if we try to, one of the things being ahead in the race, if we try to wait too often, we're gonna break all our, we're gonna break our midpoint, we're gonna break our back points, and we're gonna run out of time, and we'll be forced to break. So might as well do it now. There's certainly risk. It's this is a 50-50 game if we break, but if we don't break, we're dropping into the 30% wins. So here's a case where we break down. All right, let me pull. So here, similar situation or similar position where we've got the 3-point anchor. But now what's different here?
It's more, Black's got more hitters, more Black can hit us with, more easy for Black to hit us.
Yeah, that's good. Well, there are 2 things. First thing is, what's the race? Well, we were up in the race in the previous position, and now we're down. So right there, that should tell you, probably not a good idea to run here. And then as Ray pointed out, Black's got an extra builder here. That makes it, giving him, 3 9-pointing numbers. Remember, he's got 3 spares here to point on us if we break this anchor and leave a blot. And so that's, 9 numbers that will point on us and probably put us out of the game if he hits it. So, but probably just the race is enough to not convince you not to do that. So, not to run. So so the answer is I didn't go for the best play, but this is none of these are great plays. We're at 40% to win, but this is the best. Just clear up the blot. He's not doing anything too much. We'd like to make the bar point or the 9 or the 10 even would be okay, but we couldn't do it, and right now we're just going to keep for the holding game, we're just going to keep waiting and hope to get the shot and build our board so that when we do get to the shot, we're in good shape. Let's look at this play. This again is just the only reason this is better is because it slots a better point, slots a 3-point, but we've given up a builder. This this isn't bad. This makes a point. However, we've left the blot here. I'll look at put a little higher category, see if it matters. It makes a little bit of difference, but yeah, and black's 3-point board, you're not going to want to leave blots on. You're not going to want to hit if we do get hit, that's probably game over for that too. Okay. Whoops. Don't look at the answer. Don't know. So how do we look at this one?
We're ahead in the race, which points to, and we can run safely. And can't really see anything particularly good otherwise. In fact, the only alternative I can see, well, it could be 8-2-6-4. That looks awful. So I think I'd run all the way.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, with your, it's kind of what are your alternatives here? And because you're up in the race, so you can run. That's not bad. Generally, I find when I tend to run, sort of kind of earlier in the game, it's not quite as strong because you give your opponent jokers to get back to early on, because your opponent has a lot of time to hit you. You leave and leave a blot. So, but in this case, you're up in the race. You can run. You can run to safety. And you don't really have a great play otherwise. This is the second best play, but you're giving your opponent a shot to put you behind in the race. So that's a problem there. This play makes a point, but you break a better point, so that's not so great. This play, doesn't make a point, and you're putting some spares behind the anchor, which you generally don't want to do. So when I say that 6-4, the spare on the 4 is not really in the game, so that's not a great play. This play again leaves a shot. So again, a combination of things. Running is the best option here, but it's not really a great option. But you are up in the race, so that it's not too bad. Again, if you were behind in the race, let's just look at say that now we're not a little bit behind in the race, but we still don't have good options. That is enough to put them even. Let's say we don't have the board, and we're behind the race even more. And then we're not even thinking about running here. And 20 coming out is a blunder. So here we still don't have a great play, but okay, that's not terrible. That makes a point. And not making a point is just as good almost. But here, even though we're up in the race after the roll, we're not running out in this case is a blunder. Where's this one? No, not this one. This one. So again, we got to be really should be ahead in the race. In most cases, there are exceptions. In most cases, you need to be ahead in the race.
but we are ahead in the race after the roll.
Right, to run. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't quite see why this is so bad.
Oh, well, it's
we're up 6 pips, aren't we?
Yeah, I think the answer to that is, and this is a mistake that I often make too, because I think, all right, I'm up in the race. I'll be up in the race after the roll. First of all, you're not up in the race very much. you're up 6 after the roll, and the average roll is like 7. So this is kind of, you're kind of even in terms of racing. What you also give up here is a lot of jokers for black. So double twos, 4-2, double fours. Black is also likely to hit loose if he doesn't get one of the jokers. Double ones, I should say, is a joker too. And then now that you're further behind in the race, now it may work out. You have the better board, so that may work out. But you could also roll a 6-3 coming in, or double sixes from the bar, or if you come in and don't hit when he hits you loose, all of a sudden you're behind in the road, behind the race, and black's got 10 checkers in the zone. So you open yourself up to to attacks there. And even if even with this is kind of an even race after the roll, black may roll better in terms of you roll the big doubles, or may roll higher numbers. You may roll a bunch of really low numbers, and so for this you're ahead temporarily, but not for long. So one thing I didn't really make the criteria, but kind of early on in the game, you're going to be more reluctant to break your anchor, even if you're up in the race. And that's because there's a lot of reasons for breaking your anchor later in the game is, well, you're going to have to break it ultimately anyway. So better break it while the breaking is good. Here you've got there's a lot of game left in this. And here also you're breaking, the 5 and the 4 point are strong points. You're giving up that point, and generally you're more reluctant to do that early in the game. You get later into the middle game or to the end game, then you have to break it at some point. But here be a little more reluctant to break it at this point. Okay. So what do we think of this one? Well, what's the first thing to look at?
You're way behind.
Yeah, we're way behind in the race. We're down 23 after the run. We got 9 is a decent number, but we're down 14 after the race. So that should be a pretty good indication of what not to do. But what's unusual about this? Well, first of all, and then what's the replay? What's unusual about this that may tempt you to run?
Two
timing
points.
our timing isn't very good.
Yeah, well, now what do you mean by that, Richard?
Well, if we can come down from the 13, and now we've got 4 that are going to go in right away.
Yeah.
If we don't move, and as it stands, we're not able to make another point. Although we can slot the 2 and bring it 7-4, I guess. But we may not be able to make that point.
Well, okay, yeah. So what I think we're saying is, we're going to probably have to break. We'd like to keep this midpoint for black, to force black to to break his midpoint, and maybe we get a shot with a 1, or maybe black has to play awkwardly coming in and maybe break his board or send checkers deep. Part of the reason for waiting is that we're always a threat to hit black, and so black has got to play safely. With the board that we have, if black hits, black's probably going to give up the game. So there's that. We're beginning to bring all our checkers in. We don't have a lot of spares out there, and we're if we're forced to break the midpoint, then black has a lot more latitude to come in, and he can bring if he gets down to 2 checkers, he can bring 1 in you know, we need a 10 to hit them, and they're just, that's a 6-4 and 5-5. That's not a lot of, that's not a lot of shots. So, so what's the best play here? Well, I asked a question, and I don't think many mentioned it. What would be tempting? What would tempt you to run out in this play?
The 2 blots on the ace and 2-point.
Yeah, thanks, Charlie. Yeah, that's exactly right. We'll see that, yeah, if black leaves a lot of blots, sometimes it is right, or certainly more tempting to, you know, to come out. That's a good time to come out. And, you know, particularly to maintain this point, this is a point of contact that we'd like to, that's going to cause black trouble. And if black has left a bunch of blots in his home board, that, you know, that may be a good enough reason to go there. It isn't always, because these blots could be cleared up, and you know, right now it's a blot, but black may not be forced to you know, to hit or do something like that, and so this blot may be covered in the next roll. So like if black rolls a 6-4, black's gonna come down with the 6, cover with the 4. Now he's got 1 blot. And you know, if you can't do anything the next roll, he may come down with a, you know, another 6, a 2-6 or something, and cover the other blot, and all of a sudden you're a lone checker sitting in a home board with a 5-point board. That's not a good place to be. Okay, so let's look at the answer here. The 2 plays are correct. 3 actually, any of the top 3 are correct. Running, however, is a big mistake. It's a big blunder to do that. It's interesting running out, in this case, running out partway as opposed to, oh, that's not right. I wonder why they put that's in weird order. Okay, so forget that point. This I think most people would do. You slot the 2 and you bring a checker in, and you've got another couple rolls.
But Gary, it's not much of a error. It's not even a blunder to 22-13. It's not as bad as I would have thought.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm surprised it is that way. I wouldn't do that. Let's look at.
I think it might be a timing thing, you know? I don't know.
Okay, we know it's now is a blunder.
Oh,
On
what-
plus, it's a blunder.
No.
It's weird that comes up that way. Let's do this one.
Oh.
Yeah, it is a blunder. It's just that you know, we're doing it the weakest analysis because it's quicker, and it shows. It doesn't show as bad as it's. The one thing that often surprises me here is that it's often right to break your midpoint, even when you don't have to here, because you've got at least another roll probably to you know, to bring checkers in, and the reason is that at this point black has 4 spares here. You know, you're likely going to be forced to break your midpoint before he needs to move those 4 spares, so you're not likely to get much out of this. And so if that's the case, you know, breaking the midpoint in and keeping your board, and you know, not sending checkers deep on your board is probably the better idea. And that's frequently the case. All right, let's move here. So these are interesting positions.
Not in the race. Wow. Wow.
Hmm.
So what do we see here? Any thoughts?
I'd probably cover the 2 and bring one in from the 9 before I'd break the anchor.
Yeah. Yeah, now, and why is that?
Well, a 4-point board is more intimidating than a 3-point board. he hasn't. I don't know. I like making points when I can.
But you're not likely to get a shot immediately. I would run because we're quite reasonably ahead, and it's not particularly dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would say that I have typically made, well, and I made the mistake of running in this type of situation because we're up in the race, we'll be up by 17. It is correct not to run here.
Oh.
And this is a case where it's and this is more, again, more early on in the game, I guess, is best where you're what, and I think the reason is that you give your opponents jokers if you run here. And black is not going to, it's not likely that black's going to build anything soon, to build a strong board all that soon. I mean, he could, this double twos, fours, a 4-2 and that sort of thing to build, but he's got a big stack of checkers here. It's it's a combination of that, and we have time. The safest way to get out of this is big doubles, or even small doubles, double twos, double threes are no good, but fours, fives, and sixes. Fours, fives, and sixes probably give us the game with the race lead that we'll have afterwards. But even double twos puts us in, we can come out there and puts us in good position. So it's a combination of if you run here, you give your opponent. Let's just do the plus here, or the plus. You give your opponent the chance to point on you with the joker. And that, you go from a very solid game. This is a 60% win game. And with the yeah, well, and if you don't get hit, you're in pretty good shape. As long as you can, but well, you're in good shape, but you still have to get out the next time. And you may not roll, 7 is good, 8s are no good, 9 or better is good, but anything less, you're giving your opponent another shot at you. So you may not get out right away, but
Gary,
yeah.
so what's the reasoning why you wouldn't bring 2 down from the 13 point?
Let's see where that is. So it's generally particularly early on in the game, well, it takes away your 7, I guess. It takes away a landing point for your back checkers. And so that's why, and you have good alternatives here that make a point. So this move makes a point. I don't know why you would do that move, but it doesn't make a point. This move makes a point, although you send a checker deep. So hopefully that's a good enough explanation. But it is, if you'd like this point as a landing point for your back checkers. Ultimately, it's not too far along that you're going to have to move your back checkers, because you are sending checkers deep now with this play. You've got a nice board, but you're going to have to move them anyway. You're running out of time here. Giving it's better to have that point than a 7 plays. Next after this roll, you're almost out of time. You're going to need to move soon. So better to have that midpoint there. And black is not likely to leave you a shot. There's a lot of spares here to move somewhere, and he's got spares in his 8 and the 6. Chances are you're not going to get a shot right away. So, okay. The next section. All right, so what do we see here?
We're slightly behind in the race after we moved.
Yeah, we're down 10 to start. We're even after.
At 10, but
I think I'd go. He's got 2 blots. Any point we make in the home board is going to be deep.
Okay, well, those are fairly good reasons. Any other thoughts on this one? Well, let's look at it. So, yeah, I mean, you're behind in the race and you're even at the race, so that's generally a sign to not go. And that is correct to not run here. However, look at the top. None of these are great moves. Running is not that terrible either, for the reason that Richard said. They've got black has 2 blots. But you know, again, you're even after the run, but you're actually behind in the race because now black has a roll. And black, you know, you're not. Here's the thing: you're not in immediate danger necessarily from black because of the blots. But although he could get the joker, I mean, double ones is not a very good joker. Double threes is not so great either. But also the other jokers you're giving up is if big doubles for black, you know, 5s or 6s, and all of a sudden you're out of, you know, you're with a single checker back, you can't wait. You can't play the holding game. You're committing to the racing game. Because you can't, if black brings checkers in and hits you, you have no anchor to protect you. So it's not a flexible strategy. It's not terrible here for all the reasons Richard said to me, sending checkers deep is not really what you want. I'm not sure why. I would actually think I would make the 2 point here. Yeah. Just because it's, you know, it's a point. Oh, this is a 42. Where's making the 2 point? Here it is. Yeah, and that's basically the best play. It does make a point, but you know, it does send checkers deep. You don't really want that. The 2 point is not really the point that you want to make here. You want to make the 5 or the 3. And you know, this is somewhat surprising to me too. And going back to Ann's question, you know, I would never do this. You know, as long as we have checkers to move in, you know, I think we're better off. But you know, this isn't terrible either. And I'm not really sure. This strikes me as worse than the other plays that don't do that, but not according to XG. And you know, again, we're gonna have to run. Well, we don't have to run right away, but we're gonna have to run eventually. And I'd like to keep that midpoint there a little bit longer, but XG disagrees. So let's look at variation of this. Okay, so now we've moved some checkers up. We made a 3 point, and now we are still down in the race.
We're
but
really
now we're up.
ahead, right?
Now we're up in the race, yeah. After
And
the,
it's really dangerous for black to hit us loose. Well, not really dangerous, but like they're only going to hit us probably if they can cover because we've got a decent chance of holding them in too.
Yeah.
Feels like a good time to run.
Yeah. Yeah, well, certainly running has got to be a lot more appealing than it was last time. So let's look at that just because of the race. And, now we're up in the race afterwards. Yeah, so running actually is the top place, although, let's see, look at this one. This runs 1 out, this runs 2. Yeah, this is always interesting. The bringing 2 out, giving the direct shots rather than 1 safety is often better. And here, let's see, I think we're duplicating some of the covering numbers. This is probably why. 2s and 4s. But again, running out is running out with 1, even leaving that. Here's another play that's interesting that comes up fairly often, is that when black has all these checkers blots in the zone, sometimes it's better to leave it out, leave a checker in the outfield as sort of bait, kind of daring black to hit it, particularly if it duplicates a number like the 2. Because black probably might hit it, but again, if you could cover one of the others, or like a 2-1, black would hit it probably. But giving up the return shots is not great. So yeah, here you're heading the race. Black has the blots, better to run. Let's look at a variation, further variation of this one. Now we've covered the blots. How is this going to change things?
Much more dangerous to run.
Yeah, make a point.
Yeah. Yeah, we're up 9 pips, so we're that's sort of a reason to run, but we've left, we don't have the black has a decent board, or has something of a board, and so we don't have he's not going to, well, so now we our chances of hitting, if we get hit, are much less. And we've left the jokers, and it's now not. Let's look at the running plays. Yeah, so now the running plays are all blunders. And we can come in. I would do this one well before I do that one, but XG says they're not that much different. And we just, again, in this case, we're giving up the jokers to 3-1s, double 4s, double 3s. Those are enough, and then we may not. If we run now, we may not be able to run in the next roll, and black has another shot of us. Maybe black got more, made another point. He didn't hit us, but he could make a point, and we're going to be in deeper trouble. Or black bits a big double to go ahead in the race, and now we don't have the opportunity to hang back anymore because we've got a single checker. Okay, they've got 2 more to look at with a variation. Yeah, so these are tricky for a lot of people, and because they're somewhat complex. What do we see here?
Well, we're moderately ahead after the row. I definitely want to cover that blot, I think, but
But you have to leave a shot no matter what if you do, right? Somewhere.
yes.
Yeah, so yeah, I think if we play our 2 here, where's our 6?
Oh, yeah.
I think I'd hit.
I think I'd hit and run.
Either that or hit and come down. I'm not sure about that
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Just
because it duplicates 1s. but then again, you know, 6 is the only thing that gets us out.
Yeah. Well, that's, yeah, and so yeah, that's a good point. Black, what's different here is black has a prime in front of us, a 4 prime, and we're not at the edge. So, you know, when you're looking at a prime, you know, you want to get over it. Assuming you're ahead in the race. Here we got the minnow condition. We're ahead in the race. So if we weren't ahead in the race, I don't think we considered hopping over this. And we'll be up actually, you know, 16 after the roll. So yeah, we want, you know, we want to seriously consider that. So let's look at the answer here, and it is
Well, it's
it is
covering.
running. And it's a big, everything else is a big area, and I think
Wow.
the prime here is the key factor. We've got to get over the prime. We're up in the race, and if you know, again, if you're behind a prime, and you're up in the race, you know, you need to get over the prime, otherwise your board's going to crack before you can get out. And similarly, if you're down in the race, priming is a better strategy because now your opponent's board will crack. So everything here points to you know, getting out, and then covering, because you know, black gets a 2 here, and then we're kind of toast. We got another checker behind the prime, and that's no good.
But why
As
is this
the
one so
hit,
bad?
I think the problem with the hit here is just it's a direct shot to get us another checker. Another checker behind the prime is not good. We're down in the race,
Yeah.
and we've got a prime in front of us. And not a good situation. One thing, variation on this, I didn't look at this, but a 6-3, now we have an option that we can cover, or we can come out and safety the back checker. Any thoughts on what's better here?
If we get hit, you know, we may be, you know, we got 4 points to come in on, but that doesn't mean we're going to make an anchor. We're going to have, you know, 2 blots back there, and he has 10 in the zone, and
Yeah.
so I think covering the 3 and coming out is probably,
Yeah, the cover's even better because you're unstacking too. You've got
Yeah.
more hitters.
also that.
Yeah. I think that stacking is probably secondary, but a good secondary. It's important. So I would cover here, and it is, yeah. Just hitting from here is just too bad. It's too sends you too far back in the race, and it gets black farther out. So you've got to stop in doing it. Black is, you know, here the switch situation too is black is a single checker back, and so you know, it's not that hard for him to escape. If he creeps up a bit, it's even easier for him to escape. So we want to keep black in front of our prime, such as it is, or of our checkers. Okay, last example for today. And what do we do with this one?
And we're not going anywhere.
No?
No, because we can't get past his midpoint. So we're making a point, maybe slotting the 4. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a bad situation though because it's not going to get better for us unless we basically roll 6s because we're going to run out of moves pretty soon. and he isn't.
Yeah, so here's another case where we've got a prime in front of us. We have got a pretty good lead. We've got a pretty good big number, but we can't do everything that we'd want to do. We'd like to come out and come around, but we can't. On the other hand, what do we do if we wait? You know, we can make
Crash.
slot to 4. It's probably the right play, the next best play. But you know, when do we move these guys? You know, we can wait. We can wait for double sixes. That would be nice.
Yeah.
That would be a really good roll. But
I've tried
there's
that
one
before.
of those. We may wait a long time for the double sixes. So yeah, the answer here is okay. We got to run. We're up in the race. We're facing the prime. We got to move. You know, it puts us. Yeah, we're under the gun a lot, and this is not a great. You know, our chances aren't that great. But the alternatives are just, you know, here's a case where the alternatives are even worse. You know, we may not get it. You know, maybe 3 or 4 more rolls before we get a 6, and so we're stuck there, and we'll have crashed our board, and you know, we could be behind in the race, or black would more likely will have brought all our checkers in, begin crashing the board, and black will have more checkers on to either make this point or make the 9 point here. So not ideal, but it's time to run. And not running, even some of these running plays. What's this one? Well, yeah, this one points and covers. Well, here too. Okay, we split our anchor. Black is kind of has to hit us if he can. Because he can't let us run. We've got too much of a lead. So, you know, black may well hit us loose there. So we need to make the board. So we need to make the board and prepare for contact because we're likely to get hit at some point trying to escape these 2 back checkers. And here there's a lot of hitting numbers. You know, combination of 3, 4, and 5, black will point on us probably. Maybe, I don't know, maybe hitting 4 here is good too. But we're also giving up 7s to hit. So there are a lot of, you know, we're likely to get hit. If we do get hit, we do have return shots. If, you know, black, you know, gets a 3-1, he's got to hit us. Now any combination of 6s coming in wins. You know, 1, 2, 1, 6, 2, 6, 3, 6, 4, 6. That's 8 numbers. That's pretty good. And that, you know, that, well, I wouldn't say it's not quite a win yet, but it's likely to win for us. So again, but you know, not a recognize it's the best alternative, but it's still only 40% wins, or less than 40% wins. All right, let's look at another variation of this for the final one for today. So here, we're way up in the race, but now the 6-4 puts us beyond the midpoint. But we're still likely to get hit at some point. So I think the question is, you know, if running before was right when we're only up by, I think we're up by 11, now we're up by 24, running has to be right here. So let's not even consider not running. But what do we do with the 4? Do we go around the midpoint or do we cover to make the better board?
Well, staying at 15 dupes the 3s, but gives them a 6. So it's
If we come around, then he's going to be able to use a 2. If we don't come around, then 2s are not going to do him that much good because he'd have to come off his 6 point. 3s, 4s, and 5s are, you know, he can point on us on the 4 point. So I think maybe just coming out and then covering our 2 point might be the answer.
Okay.
Hmm.
All right, well, let's look at it. And actually here, the answer is coming all the way around.
Mm.
Yeah, and the reason for that is just the number of shots are much less. And I said, getting hit is not necessarily terrible because we have the better board. Black has a lot of work to do. He may leave us a return shot, but we'd really rather not get hit. We're so far in this game, we're so far ahead that, we'd like to just race it out. And not get hit. So here, the number of shots are less, much less, and that's our best option. It's not terrible to make the point. So, because we're still likely to get hit here, we do this play, Black is kind of forced to hit us loose, because he can't really afford to let us get over the prime again with another 6. So making the board, that's always strong. But here we're giving up a 6 and a 3.
Mhm.
Well,
And
that's right. That's a 6.
yeah,
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about that.
yeah. And the 6, if he rolls a 6, he's less likely to lead the return shot, unless he rolls a 6-5 or something. So like a 6-1, he'll just pick and pass. And now the race is back to more or less even. Same with the 3. Other than a 2-1, which would leave the shot, a 3-1, 3-2, 3-3. Well, 3-3 is a disaster for us if he rolls that, because he hit some points on the 5 and 4. But 3-4 is fine. We're not giving the shot, and a 6-3 makes that point, and sends us back. So we're in a lot of trouble there. So in this case, it's even more imperative to go around. Well, it's not more imperative. It's better to go around just because of the fewer shots. And the second choice is, okay, make the board. When you leave your anchor, you're giving up shots, and often Black is compelled to hit it, just because there's no other choice. You can't, if you leave a single checker back and you're behind in the race, you have to hit it pretty much. So, okay, that's it for this session.